everyone. This is Mark Schillinger, founder of the nonprofit Young Men's Ultimate Weekend. The Young Men's Ultimate Weekend is a wilderness rite of passage initiation adventure camp for young men ages 13 to 20. This is a life-changing event for young men. And it's a weekend that combines what I would like to call outrageous fun with resiliency training. And by that, I mean our mentors are so expert at challenging or activating the parts of the brain that young men need to develop in order to really get the confidence that they're going to need, the responsibility skills they're going to need, the leadership skills they're going to need in order to make it in the outside world. And they do that by challenging them emotionally, physically, and certainly mentally. So tonight we have Zach Bohegian and Matt Farnsworth. These are the two mentors who led the team that was followed by Lisa Ling. Some of you may know that we were honored to have Lisa Ling at our show, at our weekend event recently. And she picked one team to follow throughout the whole event, and Matt and Zach were the mentors who led that team. So tonight you're going to learn a little bit about what mentorship is like at the Young Men's Ultimate Weekend, some of the things that the young men actually do at the weekend, because parents ask me all the time, like, what happens there? And then you'll get a little bit insight as to what the young men were like, let alone for Matt and Zach, what it was like to have a woman there, because we never, ever had a woman at the Young Men's Ultimate Weekend. So it's a pretty outrageous thing. So first we're going to introduce them a little bit, and then we're going to kind of jump right into, what happened there. So Zach, I'd like to ask you first, if I could, just how did you get involved with all this Young Men's Ultimate Weekend stuff?
Of course. I first started, I think, when I was an early teen, probably 13, 14. I was a bit of a trouble kid, always getting in trouble, doing bad in school. And my dad basically told me one day I was going, and I had no idea what it was. I knew I didn't want to go, but I knew I had to go, and there I was. And
how old were you?
Either 13 or 14, early teens. And I mean, from then on, I just, I think maybe he made me go to one more, but maybe after the second one, I was hooked and I chose to go back myself.
Cool. And you went back like a number of times before you then volunteered, right?
Yeah, I went back a few more times as a participant, and then eventually I started volunteering and got hooked on that as well.
Cool. And about how many times did you say you volunteered?
Roughly, I don't know, seven or eight maybe.
Okay. And how about for you, Matt? How did you hear about YMUW, and how many times have you volunteered, that kind of thing?
Well, Corey McKinley, a friend of both of ours, introduced me to it. He thought I'd be a good fit for it. And I'd worked in some other programs in the past as a mentor, as a camp counselor type guy. And yeah, I fit right in. I loved it. I was hooked right away. And cool. I think I've done, I would always do the North and the South weekend. So I started doubling up every year, and I've done it. So I think I've done about 10 or so. So
cool.
Yeah.
So you're kind of hooked on mentoring.
Yeah, I really, really like it. I really.
What do you love about it? What do you get out of the whole thing? Like, is it about being with the men, the young men, personal growth?
Oh God, it's incredible. It's hard to know where to start, but it's kind of a full circle for me because I had a mentor come into my life when I was young, and I was pretty troubled and going through a lot of stuff. So, and then I got involved in his program, mentoring young men, but YMUW just took it to a whole nother level that I never even could have even imagined. I certainly didn't know existed. So, yeah.
And what about hanging out with, dudes you don't even know, other mentors, and then with the young men? What do you like or love about that? I know it's got to be challenging.
Oh, it's challenging, but we're all on the same team, and we're all slogging through we're all getting up at 5 a.m, and working till through the night and whatever it is. I mean, it's like we're exhausted. We're all soldiering through it, and so are the young men, even probably more than us. So it bonds all of us. Like, what did you say? 160 of us all together. Yeah. What do I get out of it? I mean, I get a lot out of it. I mean, you're exhausted, but you have this spiritual paycheck that comes in that, it's hard to cash it all at one time. That's for sure.
Well, the whole idea, thank you for bringing that up, because as you know, and Zach knows, like, I want the viewers to know, like before a mentor can volunteer at YMUW, has to go through a background check, but also like a 30 to 45 minute clearing call, we call it. And one of the things we always ask the mentors is like, what kind of personal growth are you looking for? What kind of changes do you need to make, in your life as a result of mentoring, right? As a result of volunteering, giving of yourself. So I really appreciate that you're saying that there's like a spiritual paycheck, can't cash it in all at once, because the whole idea is that it's supposed to reverberate through your life, and stay with you,
Yeah, it really does. It really does.
Beautiful. How about for you, Zach? What would you say, the benefits for you are personally, or, meeting other men, or, whatever you get about being with the young men? What are the benefits or values for you?
Well, I'd say in terms of working with young men and older men that I maybe don't know, it's a shared experience. Whatever's happening in the moment, we're all going through it together. We might have different things going on in our lives or in our minds, but we're all doing the same thing. We're all in the trenches, so there's shared camaraderie there. And I love going because I think it's critical work, and I think mentoring young men that don't have a strong father figure or a strong parental influence in their life, I think is critical work for them and just for everyone in society. And I love going because I get to, it's probably the time in the year that I get the most emotional. Mm-hmm. And that, that's crucial for me. It's not always easy to let your emotions out, but this weekend affords you that opportunity. And I think that's also a good thing when the young men see us being emotional, because we're like the examples, we're the guys to look up to. And if they see us being emotional, they'll know it's okay too. So hopefully they won't keep it all inside.
Cool. Two things. First of all, I know one of you guys is making some noise somehow. I don't know if it's with your keyboard or whatever, but if you can just be aware of that, it's picking up. Number two, what I wanted to ask you, Zach, is, you went from being a participant in the Young Men's Weekend to a volunteer, and then you made that decision, after, college, it's like you wanted to get involved in the Marines, right? And so I know the public has a sense of like the Marines are tough guys and they don't cry, they're not emotional. And I know there's a time and a place where you have to just be right on it and there is no room for emotion. And yet you're also saying that you have this ability, certainly at the YMUW, to be emotional. How do you see those two, things at play? They're both real, both important. And that sounds like you've done a really good job learning how to, manage those two, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's all a balancing act. I think if you're all machismo, no emotion, you're completely out of balance, and that's just not good for you physically or emotionally. And if you're, for me personally, if I'm too emotional and maybe no testosterone, that gets me out of balance. I like to get out and do physical things. And I think it really comes down to accepting like what is true for you and not what society thinks you should be. And I know that I'm better for it when I express my emotions. So
right. And one of the things, just for you viewers, is like we use a philosophy, it's called the right way, but it stands for 5 virtues. And it's exactly the opposite of what it may sound like. It's not like we know what's right for you. It stands for respect, intelligence, gallantry, humor, and true. And we define true as living your life with integrity, meaning if you know your values and who you are, then you're in integrity. And so when Zach refers to like doing what's true for you, we hold that in a high regard. We really hold authenticity in a high regard in our work. So I appreciate you saying that it doesn't matter what society says about this part of being a man. Like, of course we could be emotional and we can be unemotional too and go kick ass and do what we got to do. So I appreciate that. For you, Matt, with regards to, you've mentored, like you said, about 10 times. So that means that you're like really working closely with another man, right? Another adult man with young men that you've never even seen before until the day of the event, right?
Sure.
How would you describe the energy of like bonding with this other mentor? Like when you worked with Zach, like what's that experience like for you as a mentor to be so close with another guy, especially if it's somebody that you're just meeting?
Well, I mean, Zach and I didn't know each other before this, so this is the first time we got to meet. I know his father a little bit, but you know, you have to put your trust in the other man and him and you. You know, you have a job to do, and certainly this job was unique to any of the other ones that preceded it. So I think both of us were a little excited and maybe even a little nervous. You know, this is kind of a big time thing that was going on. So I think, you know, but I got a feeling from Zach immediately, you know, okay, this guy, first of all, you know, he's coming from the Marines, you know, I know his dad, and, you know, and then immediately got a vibe from him. This guy's solid, you know, and a good dude, you know, and he's humble. He's got, you know, all the traits that were perfect for me to work with, as, you know, working with me as a mentor. I worked with a bunch of different guys. And, so yeah, it was easy working with him. I'll put it that way. But yeah, we bonded pretty much right away.
Cool. And how would you say now, and we'll talk about the Lisa Ling thing, of course, in a minute, but how would you just say now, like, and probably with other mentors you worked with before, what's that bonding like even years after the event?
Oh, it's great. I mean, you're going through something that, you know, no one else probably in the world is going through, you know, and, you know, there's such a range of emotions, and you're privy to the development of these young men in such a special and powerful way. Yeah. And all the grieving that goes on, and certainly for all of us, you know, men and the young men, it's kind of hard to put into words. I think the only real direction I could go with it is like it's a spiritual thing. So if you have the opportunity to bond spiritually with somebody, even though that sounds a little much, it is really true. I mean, you're exposing sides, and you're seeing sides, and you're being, what's required of you is required, and more is being pulled out, and you're pulling more out of you. So you're seeing that in the other person. So that's, you know, special. You know, that's not your everyday, you know, situation. So
spiritual meaning like in the sense that everybody's vulnerable in a certain way, and it's got to really support everybody in a certain way so you all make it through, something like that is what do you refer to?
Well, it's just that the ideals, the purpose, the right way, the purpose, the goal, the mission of what we're doing is, I think, at a very high level. So we're all sort of on a spiritual mission, it feels like. We're all there to do something that's not just normal, your everyday thing. We're there to help young men and ourselves develop as human beings. And to me, that can't help but have a spiritual element to it.
Beautiful, very beautiful. And for you, Zach, what was it like, you know, getting to know Matt and, you know, the bond with him even now, long after, and certainly, you know, with other YMUW guys that you've mentored with? What's that experience like as a mentoring with another guy?
Yeah, I mean, like Matt said, like we're all kind of on a spiritual mission. I mean, I was excited to work with him right from the get-go, because I knew that basically we're, to some degree, like-minded individuals. We both think this is very important. We both want to give our time. And I mean, Matt obviously has some more life experience on me and some more wisdom. And I thought he was very genuine and always willing to open up and share his wisdom with not just me, but with the young men on our team. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I thought we bonded right from the beginning and worked really well together. And of course, going forward, I mean, I have a guy I can count on for the rest of my life. Like, we'll always remember that weekend.
Yeah, it's beautiful. You know, one of the things I want to say to the viewers is, like, one of our key mentors to this day, Mitch DeArmond, has always said to us, like, it's our obligation as men to do this initiation work. And the bonding that happens for the men as a result of, I would say, fulfilling their biological obligation to go do this and help other young men. It is a lifelong bond. It's really beautiful. The other thing I want to comment real quick, I think it was you, Matt, who mentioned Corey's name, Corey McKinley. I know when he speaks to the young men, he says, like, the only difference between me as a 50-some-odd-year-old and you guys as 15 years old is that I'm just older and that I've made more mistakes, and therefore I have more experience, you know? And I think that's a beautiful way that the both of you, like, you have that approach with the young men. You have more experience. Like you said, Zach, Matt has more experience than you. And it doesn't mean that he's smarter in any certain way or more intelligent, we would say, in the right way, sure. Right? But you have more wisdom because you have experience, right? So I just want the viewers to know that's how we hold young men. We think that intelligently they're the same as adult men. They have it within them, and it's our job to draw it out of them. That's all, really. All right, let's get to the good stuff here with Lisa Ling. You two guys were picked as the mentors to lead these young men, and Lisa and her crew wanted to follow one team the whole weekend. Like I said to you viewers, we've never had a woman there, let alone a whole weekend there. And so what was that like for you? What did you notice, Zach? Were you inhibited in any way? Was she interfering in any way? What was that experience like for you? How did it affect the young men? That kind of thing.
I think I was, first of all, incredibly honored to be chosen along with Matt to be followed by Lisa Ling and her team. And I was a little maybe nervous and apprehensive at the beginning like everyone else, but I mean, like so many people have expressed, we truly believe in this weekend and we need to get it out there to a bigger audience, and this is the way to do it. And I thought from the start, Lisa was very professional, very genuine, fit right in. I mean, she was the only woman with a whole ton of guys, but she fit right in. She wasn't intimidated. She just did her job excellently, and I didn't feel weird about it. I knew she was there, but it wasn't an intrusive presence. And I think for the young men growing up in this day and age where cameras are everywhere and social media is everywhere, I think they were accustomed to it, and I don't think it was weird for them.
Oh, good.
Maybe, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago, maybe it would have been weird for the young men, but I think the young men and me and Farmer, I thought we acted genuinely, and it didn't really change how we approached the weekend.
Cool. And just so you viewers know, when Zach calls Matt Farnsworth Farmer, it's because one of the silly things we do as dudes is we like to give each other nicknames. So you just heard him call his nickname. How about with regards for you, Matt, just in terms of like having Lisa there, what did you notice? What was, the reaction of the young men? Did that inhibit them or you in any way?
Well, I was excited that Lisa was coming. And my whole viewpoint was this was a really fortunate and powerful and great thing. So I never really took the standpoint that, there was going to be a problem. I thought, this is a one-time thing, or, I understood why she was there. And so I just never really had a problem. And when she was there, she was very unobtrusive. In fact, she held back quite a bit. It was mainly the film crews, which happened to be all male. And they were incredibly ninja-like and professional. I mean, we got used to them pretty much quicker than I thought we would. And then Lisa came in, she was pretty ghosty. She'd come in here and there and maybe poke her head in at dinner and stand in the hallway. And it was more like I wanted to go talk to her rather than her butting in and elbowing into a position at the table or anything like that. So I thought she did a great job.
Did you get a chance to talk to her at all?
I did. When she was there in the mess hall, we got to chat a little bit, and she just came across really genuine. And I've seen her shows, and I know what she's all about. And she's trying to, show like the real side of humanity and people. And she's just, I liked her right away. She seemed really grounded and not fake and not LA like, excuse me, but she just was kind of the real deal. I was very impressed with her.
Yeah, me too. In fact, so just so your viewers know, like 3 weeks before we put on the YMUW, we have about the 60 to 75 mentors there getting through training. And so when I announced to these mentors that there was going to be a woman there, some of them actually stood up and said, "We ain't coming. We're worried that the young men are not going to be able to go through what they got to go through, or maybe the adult men." And they actually really threatened to leave. And a number of men, me included, and like Matt said, we just said we're never going to get this chance again, probably. So by the end of the training, they all agreed to be there. And I think from the very moment that Lisa was there, I sort of walked her into the circle of the volunteers who get there earlier before the young men show up. And as soon as she walked in the circle, at least what I felt was like just this amazing presence that the two of you guys are referring to. And I kind of half-kiddingly said to some of the men, like, we're outnumbered. Like, her presence felt like, she could contain all of us dudes. And like I think you, Zach or Matt, hinted at earlier, there's about 160 men and young men there. So I was totally impressed, with how she did what she did. And I appreciate you saying that the young men weren't inhibited, because just so you viewers know, during the Young Men's Weekend, I'm in a hotel with the parents doing a rite of passage for them on how to be more effective with their sons. So I'm not even there anymore. It's these guys who are really my eyes and ears about what goes on. So I'm happy to hear that they weren't inhibited. A couple more questions before we wind down. I would like for you to talk a little bit about the grieving ceremony. It's a very powerful thing. And Lisa got a chance to watch that. And she told me she cried a number of times throughout the weekend watching the magic we do. If you would start, Zach, just a little bit about either what you gained from it or still gain from it if you still grieve with them, with the young men, and just the value of what that is for young men to really get a chance to let go of all their past pains, hurts, and disappointments.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely still gain from it every time I go because, life goes on in between each weekend, and there's always stuff you want to get off your chest. And us as guys, we don't always have easy outlets to get it out, or maybe we just don't want to because of society tells us we shouldn't. And the grieving ceremony is one of the main things that draws me to the weekend that I know I need the most. And I will most of the time grieve with the young men, and I think it's not only good for me, but a lot of the young men are hesitant to go at first. And when they see us going, leading the way, like I hinted at earlier, when they see us getting our emotions out, it lets them know that they're in a safe place to do the same thing.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've cried during grieving ceremonies many times. Mm-hmm. And I remember a weekend where I was there with my dad, and I chose not to grieve because I was just nervous of doing it in front of him. And on the drive home, I admitted that to him, and I immediately regretted not doing it, and I couldn't wait to do it the next weekend.
Yeah. So what Zach is referring to, and what Matt's going to address in a moment for your viewers, is like when the young men show up on Friday night, they're pretty much filled with F you, I don't want to be here. By Saturday, they go through a whole series of events, like they make hip hop beats, and they do ropes courses, and they do drumming and all sorts of leadership skill things. And but so we kind of get their trust within a short period of time. But by Saturday night, they're going through this midnight ceremony where they're hardcore physically letting out, screaming, yelling, pounding the dirt, pushing up against other dudes to get all their energy out. It's quite intense. And yet by the end, they literally look like different people, right? They have all that stress kind of stripped away. So Matt, I'd love for you to kind of give your perspective about how you see what that's like for everybody, including the men, because the men do, and the value of that can't probably be achieved in like a talk therapy setting.
Yeah, I mean, I remember the very first time that I was part of one of these grieving ceremonies, and it occurred to me right away that just how toxic it is for men, where the problems in our society extrapolate out to with men not being able, and starting as young men, not being able to express anger, to hold in this toxic soup of negative emotion and anger and emotion. And I'd never, ever witnessed anything where it was so effective to allow this to be released in such a powerful and supportive container that's so well prepared and so well executed. And so it was just instantaneous. I realized, like, this is probably the most core important thing of the whole event in some ways. Yeah. I mean, because if you extrapolate what we do, what goes on in society when young men grow up and they keep this, it just gets stuffed. They're up to their eyeballs in anger, and there's nowhere to go with it. So you can see the result of that is so profound, and you see the men who we've stuffed it inside of ourselves all the way into our 30s, 40s, 50s, even 60s, and then you see some of those men releasing, and it's an incredibly powerful experience. I mean, it's a game changer. Yeah, it's a big deal.
It's a game changer. Yeah. For you viewers, I mean, the whole idea is to give men and young men an opportunity to grieve kind of the way it was done ancestrally, which is like quick and deep and intense, and then we move on. And we also let the young men know that there's a time and a place to grieve, and it's not around parents and children. It's got to be done, we think, in a container of men where they feel safe to really let it out. So when the men grieve, I think, you both alluded, when young men see adult men grieving, I think they get the message that it's okay, to really go for it. And it's very powerful, really, really powerful. One last thing before I ask you the last question or two here. just a little bit about the spiritual aspect of YMUW when we do our sweat lodge. You know, what do you see as the benefit for that? What benefit do you get from that, Zach? And how would you describe that, especially from the point of view of a young man? Some young guys have never been introduced to spirituality in a way where they don't have to pray in any specific way, because the right way is all about discovering spirituality in a way that's profound for you. So, and we use a sweat lodge as a way to sort of draw that out of the young men. How would you describe that, Zach?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, the sweat lodge is another great element of the weekend, and it is meant to be very spiritual. I mean, I'm sure for some of the young men, they might not get a spiritual aspect out of it, but I think there's a second aspect to it. I mean, I'm sure a lot of the young men have never experienced anything like that, being in such tight quarters in very hot, extreme air. And I mean, I think it's just a great exercise of calming the mind and trying to sit still and knowing that it's going to be okay and trusting the process.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, just kind of like, life isn't always comfortable, and you have to try and get comfortable in these uncomfortable situations because they're going to keep coming up.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I love the sweat lodge. Of course, it gets all your toxins out, physically and emotionally, and I think it's great.
Cool. I know one thing that I get a joy from is when I used to be at the YMEWs and not in the hotel with the parents, like watching the young men come out. It's kind of like they grieve the night before, they get maybe 3 or 4 or 5 hours of sleep, if that, then they go do the sweat lodge. They just look clean and fresh, and watching them hug each other and congratulate each other, it's tear jerking, you know, to see that. How about for you, Matt? What's your relationship to the sweat lodge, and how would you say, you know, the benefit is for young dudes?
Oh, it's incredibly powerful. Like you said, I mean, they've been grieving the night before. They've had 4 or 5 hours of sleep. Then they go into this lodge, you know, that's a very unique new experience for them. And it pushes their boundaries big time. I mean, there's some some stuff you come up against in these lodges, very hot in there. And, you know, people can panic a little bit. So you have to stay calm and talk. And you're literally, everyone is just crammed in there. So you're one unit, you know, going through this. And it's, of course, it's primal. I mean, the native sweat lodges have been going on for quite, you know, some time, thousands of years. So it's a real treat. It's a real special thing, you know. So it's, yeah, powerful. They're completely cleansed on all levels, you know, when they come out of there.
Absolutely. And what I want you viewers to know is, because I know lots of parents have a fear about sweat lodge because some people can die in them if they're done incorrectly. So we're very safety concerned. Nobody's ever got hurt, let alone died, of course. And if somebody has to leave a sweat lodge, we don't make them stay. I really want to be clear about that. If you have a negative association with sweat lodges, the benefit that the young men and the adult men get is amazing. So winding down here, on Sunday, when the families come together again and have that final reunion, which is also a tearjerker, and then watching the families kind of drive off, right? And then it's just the mentors, right? It's just all the volunteers left. And we do a big circle up. And then we get a chance to express what we learned and what we got. What's that energy like for you after that circle up's over and you're saying goodbye to the guys and you're about to drive off? What is that energy like for you, knowing that you've completed this outrageous weekend? Zach, if you would begin, that'd be great.
Yeah, I mean, by the end of the weekend, it's everybody's exhausted and, you know, pushed to their limits, and it's kind of like I don't know, maybe a runner's high where you're like so tired and so exhausted, but you're in like an elevated state and you feel so accomplished. And when we have this ceremony at the end where we march the young men in between their families and the mentors and the production staff, I mean, it's a feeling that's hard to describe. Like looking out on the young men, like you're definitely very proud of them, and watching them embrace their families. It's incredible for sure. And that's another emotional part of the weekend. The entire weekend is emotional, which is okay. And which is great, but it's a special moment.
Cool. How about for you, Matt? What's that feeling like at the very end? All that energy's kind of leaving and you're there.
Oh, it's so special. I mean, what I really appreciate about it is how there's a reintroduction with the parents to the young men. I want to introduce you to your kind of your new young man, and I like how you format it, Mark. The way hey, perhaps you could learn to treat this person differently. Perhaps you could take out the trash, for your mom, and I just thought, and the whole energy. I mean, you can see it's just everyone's vibrating with this vibration of the parents you can tell the immense gratitude they have towards us. They know we're volunteering. They know we have our own families we've left behind. We're all dusty. We're all dirty. But, our chests are puffed out. We're full of pride. It's a great feeling. It is sort of like a runner's high because you are running on complete exhaustion. And there are times, too, another little special wrinkle to it is some of the young men where, for whatever reason, the parent can't be there. And sometimes we step in to be with the young man. And I feel that's very special as well, being a part of that. But yeah, and then everyone is just all one team. It feels like the largest family that I've ever been with, one time, and of course that's the reintegration of the men and the women because the moms are there and sisters and whatnot. So it's a great feeling.
Well, it's really what Matt is describing is this intentional sort of tribal setting, right? Where the young men are being honored by their parents and by the volunteers because they've gone through this amazing rite of passage, and so have the adult men, by the way. So there's just a lot of love, a lot of sense of loyalty, right? A lot of sense of connection. And the ceremony that Matt's referring to and Zach is like, at one point, we have the parents and the young men like 6 inches apart, and they've been away a whole week and haven't seen each other. And I asked them to look at each other right in the eyes and to start seeing each other with a new sense of respect, to hold each other in the highest regard. And it's very intense. And yet at the end, like Matt's saying, they all hug, they all get together. It's a very beautiful ceremony. And it's one that I recommend, even if you don't have a son, even if you're not a volunteer, you're allowed to come to that final ceremony. If you want to watch something that I would call supremely ancestral, come check that out. Last question for you guys. For you, Zach, as a volunteer and somebody's been there for so many years as a participant too, would you recommend it for other adult men? And by adult men, I mean 21 or over if you're going to volunteer. Would you recommend it for other men? And if so, why?
Yeah, 100%. And maybe they never attended themselves and they're too old to attend. That's okay too. They can volunteer and get a whole lot out of it. And I mean, I truly believe in what we're doing and that it's critically important for the young men in society. And even as a mentor or just a production staff volunteer, like you learn things about yourself throughout the weekend. You might not be doing the exact same obstacle courses, but you get the same chance to go deep within yourself. You get the same chance to grieve and be emotional. And I mean, there's endless benefits to it. I definitely would recommend it to anyone.
Cool. How about for you, Matt?
Well, I think anyone who was involved in that for the weekend would get some skills immediately. I mean, the amount of teamwork that is required of you is so high. I mean, you're gonna find this out on a whole different level, and you're gonna make friends for life. I mean, there's so much value in it. I mean, not just as a mentor, but as Zach said, as a production manager. I've done production once or twice, and I didn't think I was going to have as much fun as being a mentor, but I did. It was actually a blast, whether I was in the kitchen or wherever I was. So you're going to come out of it with something that nothing else can give you. I guess that's the best way to put it.
Cool. Very cool. So one last thing I'd like to tell the viewers, like I've known Zach since he was, 13 or 14, from the Young Men's Weekend. He also came to a men's team that I ran with a fellow named Richard Platt, who's a family therapist here in Marin. And Richard was friendly with Zach's dad, Dave. They became friends, and that's how Zach got involved. So Zach's dad has been president of YMUW. He's still a volunteer. Actually, now he's teaching the parenting workshops with me. So, I want you to know, what we've created as a tribe. I know Zach so well. I'm so proud of him, watching him. He started 13. Now he's, 28, I guess, or soon to be 28. Yep. He's my family. and so is his dad, and so is his mom for that matter, right? And then with Matt, I've known him now all these years. He's been volunteering. We've been slowly coming closer, through our spirituality and our connection. And then a couple of weeks ago, I actually hired Matt. He's an amazing landscape architect. And like in a period of a week or two, he just did something I could never do. He made my daughter happy, okay? He just recreated this beautiful space. And, so he's family. It's like, and my daughter's like going to mentor his daughter a little bit, right? So it's like, that's what we've created, a family, a community, a tribe. We take care of each other. So I want to thank you both. I'm saying this with goosebumps because I love you both and I love what you do for YMUW. And I believe all the problems in the world, I believe, would be solved if we had more mentors in the world like you and more families open to mentorship. So thank you. And I want to let you families know that if you want to know more about the Young Men's Ultimate Weekend, it's very simple. Just, info@ymuw.org. Shoot us an email, info@ymuw.org, or call us 800-719-9302, and we will get back to you and we'll let you know more about it. So thank you so much for watching. And again, contact us if you have any questions, anything you want to know about YMUW.